The carbon cycle is a natural process that involves the recycling the carbon atoms coming from the atmosphere into organisms on the Earth and then back to atmosphere repeatedly, which is termed from a cycle. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the US, humans are the top contributor to the carbon cycle through activities such as the burning of fossil fuel and land development. Consequently, this amounted to a drastic rise of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that is significantly greater than at any time within the last 800,000 years. To say that this is alarming is an understatement. This calls for immediate action as this is a matter of life and death, and our future safety. The rise of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere can disrupt the carbon cycle, which in turn result in the trapping of the heat and heating up the planet, resulting in climate change. With the planet's temperature dramatically rising, the effect of climate change also worsened. Some manifestations of these are change in weather patterns, severe storms, increasing droughts, the rise of sea level, and even loss of species. This time, we will be focused on how the carbon cycle, or rather the irregularities in the carbon cycle, brought about the melding of human, affecting animals' life. Not only did the increasing in carbon dioxide concentration, which is coming into the light as human who can act, but we must also do our part in mitigation of our planet. This solution need not be grand. We can start with simple steps such as the triple S, reduce, reuse, and recycle. In the same sense, we can also help by conserving water and electricity, as well planting trees to compete with the ratio of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Another thing that is sometimes overlooked is the act of raising awareness and educating others regarding this matter, which is also important since not everyone acts up unless they feel the need to and unless they are threatened enough. And so, to everyone who is watching right now, please join us as we join hands together to save our planet. These simple steps matter if we do it together. Every small thing becomes big when put together collectively. Help us in spreading the word. Pass the mic now. The basic foundation of life on Earth is carbon. The Earth's temperature is regulated by carbon compounds, which also makes up food we eat and provide the energy that powers our global economy. However, excess carbon brought about by human activities such as burning fossil fuels and land development negatively impacted the carbon cycle, causing climate change and affecting life on Earth, specifically animals as we know it. Hundreds of animals have gone into extinction, and many more will be gone if we don't do something about it.
Let me explain to you the role of animals in the carbon cycle. Animals get their carbon by eating plants and other animals, and in turn, they emit it when they breathe. The carbon cycle affects animals because animals absorb carbon. The plant carbon is transferred to the animals that eat them through food chains, and the animals that consume the plants can then ingest and store this carbon. Carbon is also obtained from the food of animals that consume other animals. Additionally, animals release carbon into the soil. When animals perish, their bodies degrade into the silt, encasing the carbon in layers that eventually transform into rock or minerals. Some of this silt may subsequently turn into fossil fuels like coal, oil, or natural gas, which when burned release carbon back into the atmosphere. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that life on Earth relies on the carbon cycle. The quantity of carbon naturally released by carbon life forms equals the amount of carbon naturally absorbed by carbon life forms because nature tends to maintain carbon levels in balance. the world can continue to support life by keeping this carbon in balance. So let's keep this balance, shall we?
With the ever deteriorating state of the atmosphere due to humanity's non-stop release of greenhouse gases, all kinds of animals have not only gone extinct as stated earlier, but are continuing to do so at an alarming rate. The excess carbon that humans continue to emit is massively contributing to the air pollution problem. Now, we know that exposure to air pollution brings about negative effects to us humans. However, what about animals? To answer that question, perhaps even more so. One research states that among non-human animal species, birds may be particularly vulnerable to health-damaging air pollutants. Why is that, you ask? Besides the obvious birds fly and constant exposure to high concentrations of reactive gases and aerosols, their biology makes it even more difficult and straining. When compared to mammals, the avian respiratory system has a unidirectional airflow and cross-current gas exchange. So, as earlier stated, not only are they constantly exposed to air pollution on a daily basis, their lungs make them even more vulnerable to it. Numerous studies have observed a decline in bird population density, species diversity, and species richness, all of which have been attributed to constant exposure to industrial air pollution. And not only that, on an individual level, this exposure results in respiratory distress and illness, increased detoxification effort, elevated stress levels, immunosuppression, behavioral changes, and impaired reproductive success, among other things. Birds have often been regarded as creatures that dictated the nature of their surroundings. In the past, canneries were used to indicate signs of toxic gases, such as carbon monoxide, inside coal mines. They were used so often in this way that it coined the phrase cannery in the coal mine, referring to imminent danger soon to come. If birds are now experiencing the horrible effects of our actions, how much longer until the danger settles in? Maybe it already has, with all the environmental ravaging we have caused to the earth that nurtured all life, destroyed habitats and whole ecosystems, and even threatened biodiversity. It is safe to assume that we are becoming invasive, or perhaps we already have.
As described by the National Geographic Society, invasive species are organisms that are not native to a certain area of ecosystem and which are potential of bringing ecological harm to both the ecosystem and economic form brought by the natural resources. An example of this is the Finlayson squirrel that have been reported to be in the villages of Metro Manila that have been a threat to the ecological lifestyle of the native bird species of that environment. These types of species are capable to the massive disruptions of biodiversity, but that does not mean that they are entirely adverse. This just means that the species do not belong to the new environment, but still has the potential in bringing back the ecological lifestyle of their own respective area of ecosystem. An invasive species that affect the carbon cycle is the fire tree or Morella freya. Fire tree has the ability to transform the atmospheric nitrogen into inorganic nitrogen compounds, ammonium and nitrate, which are obtainable from the soil for plants to be used as fertilizer. With that characteristics, it allows the invasive species to surpass the native species and can absorb and store more carbons. Whilst focusing on the different species of animals that are set on being invasive species, humans have been found to be the most invasive species amongst all. Mankind is causing the sixth great extinction that attributes to the decline of habitat loss, food production, overexploitation of different species, and climate change. Mankind has been effectively the ultimate invasive species from taking over habitats to the consumption of different resources across the globe. Territories arising for economic growth and welfare through rapid development and urbanization. More than this, mankind has been more reckless with actions towards saving the environment. As little as it may sound, From cleaning and segregating trash up to the lessening of the wastes, humans have not been capable to be consistently in maintaining these efforts for the saving of the ecological system and the planet as a whole. Amplified with this, we humans must understand the effects of these actions and with global climate change, so that there will be a progressive development towards saving our environment and the next generation of species. Thank you and God bless.